Okay, hello, and thank you for joining us today on our webinar for how AI and automation fuel integrated marketing results. A few housekeeping items just as we get started. Please check your computer sound if you're not hearing me speak right now. All of our attendees are muted, but if you want to interact with us, please use the questions panel and we'll answer as many questions as we can at the end of the session. And then lastly, the webinar will be recorded and shared. So hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Hennessy, and I am a Senior Director of Product Management at BrandMuscle. And I'm very happy to have Jessie Johnson with me today. Jessie is a Principal Analyst at Forrester, and she's focused on real-time buyer enablement, conversational interactions, and emerging trends in program design and activation to fuel the revenue engine. Welcome, Jessie.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here.
Great. So today we're going to have a conversation. As we dive into this world of artificial intelligence, exploring how technologies are transforming the way we approach integrated marketing, our goal is that by the end of this conversation, you'll understand a bit better the benefits of AI and automation and how that's applying to both your B2B and channel marketing strategies. All right. So to start things off, Jessie, I was hoping you could talk a bit about the evolution of technology and marketing and how audience expectations have shifted.
Absolutely, that's a great place to start. If we think about the evolution of modern business technology and the skills that support that technology, it really dates back to the 1960s with the introduction of ERP systems and the ability to centrally manage business processes and day-to-day activities. So this brought technology and operations to the forefront as a critical capability. It also gave way to the development, evolution, and sometimes consolidation of the systems that we use to communicate. So jump forward to the early 2000s. It was a bit of a one-way conversation that was all about brand. The internet was exploding, it was .com everything, and budgets really prioritized advertising and events. We were placing high value on those right brain skill sets. Then came the 2010s, the era of technology. So analytical skills, programmatic thinking, and process knowledge were all in demand to support these increasing technology budget allocations and investments in the people. So the mindset had started to shift dramatically to those left brain skills. Today, we're focused on engagement, empowering the modern workforce to deliver differentiated experiences for our customers. So things like AI and automation are no longer optional.
Yeah, Jessie, I completely agree. And I was thinking about this topic, and I've been in marketing technology for almost 15 years now and have seen this evolution firsthand. So when we started out, it was all about making sure the brand message was getting out. Creative agencies were really the central force in everything that was happening. And then as we moved into the era of tech, it really became about APIs, integrations, data, analytics, and then the growing of that martech ecosystem. We really saw that start to develop. So while both brand and tech are still important, for the last 2 years, it's been all about AI and automation. And the way we're thinking about this is layering AI into our entire ecosystem. So rather than being a point solution that solves a specific problem, we've been looking at AI in 3 areas, which I'll talk more about throughout the webinar, but to highlight them is machine learning-based marketing recommendations, AI-assisted marketing workflows, and generative AI. And all of those have a conversational component.
Absolutely, and what better way to drive that engagement than through conversation? By nature, it's bi-directional, it's dynamic. If we think about, where that leaves us in terms of this evolution, it really requires holistic thinking. So the inquiry of a complex whole. For businesses, holistic thinking will then take into account the business purpose, values, function in its environment, process, and structure. So businesses and their employees, buyers and sellers, humans and machines, we all need to work together to participate in a well-informed conversation, combining the right and left brain skills that were seemingly siloed until now. So the future of buying and the future of work are intricately connected around a single concept. We need to be able to sense and respond to the needs of our audiences in real time. So technology really evolves with modern business needs, as do audience expectations. So as we know, the purchasing journey is complex. Consumerized expectations of business buyers, they're requiring instant gratification, and it's not just speed to respond. It has to be the right response, and it has to be relevant to them in that moment. So a couple of data points here from Forrester's 2023 Global B2B Marketing Study. 75% of B2B marketers agree that their buyers and customers do expect that immediate response to their questions, and 77% of respondents agree that B2B buyers and customers expect an experience personalized to their needs across sales and marketing. So it's not just the top of the funnel, not just the bottom of the funnel, but really throughout that entire relationship. But it's easier said than done. So what we run into in terms of what are the challenges in program and campaign implementation. So we find over and over again, things like functional silos and data unification challenges are creating disconnects in marketing. So we have 38% of respondents to that same survey citing coordination across siloed marketing teams, and 31% cited integrating and consolidating multiple sources of data to be among their biggest challenges in marketing. So if we have this lack of alignment and strategy and coordinated execution, that's where we start to see this disconnect with what our audiences really need and how they prefer to interact. So as marketers, we need to understand not just the dynamics of our buyer and customer groups, but also how we can connect digital and non-digital interactions to deliver relevant and above all accurate personalization and outreach activity. So what does that require of us as we think about the evolution of technology and how that supports us in getting our job done? So integrated marketing really requires this idea of interdisciplinary AI literacy. Our buyers and customers know now that their behaviors influence the way that providers interact with them. So prescriptive approaches to program and tactic architecture have really stagnated. Generative AI, on the other hand, is introducing new capabilities for delivering contextual interactions that are designed, assembled, and delivered on the fly using customer data and intent signals. So interdisciplinary AI literacy means customer-obsessed organizations need to tune their teams and technologies into the signals that matter most to that business environment and audience context in order to enable value realization throughout the customer lifecycle. So in equal measures, digital experiences depend on and generate signals specific to that business environment and its diverse audiences. And this is what really helps us to sustain responsive, context-aware dialogues, if we think back to the age of conversation and engagement. So this idea of contextual awareness really creates an architecture of relevance that helps humans and machines to interpret and respond to those signals with best fit content and recommended actions. So what are you seeing on the channel marketing side as you think about these signals that are really key to being able to respond to your customers in real time?
Yeah, some of the interesting examples we've seen so far in terms of signals have been, if we're looking at footfall data, right? So we have third-party footfall data. Maybe there's a change in customer patterns. And so what that might have us do is prompt a local partner in that area, that main street local marketer who doesn't know anything about their local business, to do a competitive conquesting campaign, or at least to raise their level of marketing to meet what we see are the changes in the footfall data. That's a really interesting example with third-party data. Another thing we might do is if there's just something as simple as like platform inactivity. So the user hasn't logged into the platform in a while, we know they're disengaged, they're not doing a ton of marketing. It might just simply be prompts to give them a recommended, something easy that they can opt into or do, hey, we really think you should be doing this, and try to re-engage them. A really common use case for us is unspent channel funds. So the local business has accrued co-op. They literally have free money sitting in a bank account and they haven't used it yet. So we can help them either maybe submit a claim because they're just delayed on the paperwork, and that's why it looks like they have a lot of money. Or we can help them use those funds to make a strategic marketing package. So that's a big signal for us. We might also do something like if there's a lookalike audience performance lift. So we're analyzing audience data and seeing where in our, we're running hundreds of thousands of local campaigns at any given time. And so as we start to fine tune those metrics and use AI to figure out where there might be performance lifts or in certain categories, we can find local businesses in those same categories and tell them, hey, we've seen a lift. You should opt into this kind of marketing. It typically performs well for someone who looks like you. And just all of these signals and intents come together to help make the experience more meaningful. Jessie, something else that you talked about, you said instant gratification, and that also made me think about in the channel structure, when you're thinking about that B2B to channel structure, it's also about delivering AI solutions and results to the partner network quickly. So we typically see that they are tech laggards. There's logistical hurdles to getting it out to a full network. There's compliance hurdles. So this is really a critical moment for those brands to embrace AI to help them keep that competitive edge, because it's such a rapidly evolving landscape. I mean, every week I wake up and I learn something new about AI, or everything that I thought was true changes.
New app for that.
Yes. So brands can look to what I would recommend is that look to your existing software partners who are using AI, because they can help you bring AI solutions more quickly, maybe than having to search for something from scratch and go through the whole procurement and contracting process.
Absolutely. And I would echo that and also add that those existing partners, as we think about that context layer, context is everything, whether that's in our interactions with buyers and customers, or being able to predict how something is going to play out. So another consideration is, as you lean on your existing technology vendors, they're already integrated into your stack and your customer data warehouse. They have that context in place, not to mention these AI models that have already been training on your specific business and that specific use case. So it's kind of that idea of, calm down, let's get back to the basics. It's not time to, kind of dismantle the technology stack. Trust that your vendors and your partners are also evolving with the marketplace. And even more importantly, they have that critical customer context that you need to realize that success with AI. Absolutely.
Yes, yes. So one thing that we've talked about, Jessie, is conversation automation. And I know you've done a ton of research in the space. So I was hoping you could share with us what impact it's having.
Absolutely. Really, it's one of the most impactful and fastest moving applications of AI in the revenue engine. So as of 2021, already over half of demand and ABM marketers were already using conversation automation technologies for marketing use cases. So this is already starting to move beyond sales and support use cases to address that full customer lifecycle. So now in 2023, to go back and kind of look at similar study data, that same global marketing study from Forrester found that 61% of B2B marketing organizations are planning to increase their spend on conversation automation. So they're seeing the value, they're seeing that success. So how do we define conversation automation? So these are technologies that provide AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants that work alongside your human team members to co-create, to facilitate, and learn from conversational interactions and outcomes that support a range of use cases for lifecycle revenue marketing. That's a theme that will come up for us over and over again. What is that actual use case? It's not enough just to have a chat bot on the website to greet your visitors. In that scenario, you're likely creating friction for them because you're not providing value. It's like we have this shiny object, so we're going to serve it up to everybody that visits the website. So what we're finding, recent innovations in embedded conversation automation solutions are really fueled by rapid advancements in large language models and generative AI, introducing and refining the capabilities that we have in the stack for personalized content experiences, maybe access to audience and marketing performance insights, as you highlighted, and content production at scale. So really starting to, it's like the dream becomes a reality now. We have the precision and the accuracy that we need in order to scale these experiences at the same time that we're enabling our frontline marketers based on their role to get the information that they need. So modern business users, if we think buyers and customers, marketers and sellers alike, they're all inspired by their consumer experiences with AI and conversational interfaces, and really looking to better utilize these technologies for business purposes. And Markie, one of my favorites, as you know, so great example here. What kinds of conversations and recommendations is Markie assisting with?
Yeah. So for those of you, if you are an existing BrandMuscle customer, or maybe you follow us on social media, you've probably heard about Markie. Markie is our virtual assistant. And, talking about evolution and conversation automation, all of these things, Markie really started purely as a chatbot, handling local marketer questions, keeping in the context of the brand guidelines and the fun guidelines, which was great. That was our, the first thing that we launched. But what we've really seen is with the explosion in technology in the last year alone, it's enabled us to really expand Markie's functions into different types of workflow. We've expanded the user interface. So Markie can do lots of different things now, like different types of approvals. So if you need to review a claim submission, someone submitted for reimbursement, Markie can help accelerate that process, or maybe a design for a print order that needs to be reviewed and approved. One of the coolest things that we've done that I absolutely love is data summarization. So asking a query of Markie, how many campaigns were activated last month? If I'm a corporate marketer, I might want to know things about my program. If I'm a local partner, I might want to know how well did my campaign perform. And now, rather than having to look at a report or comb through an Excel file, Markie can simply give me that answer, which is amazing. What else would I think about with Markie? Providing the connection between all of the ML recommendations and the local partner. So how does Markie deliver the message of, hey, you should be doing this, or would you like to do something next, kind of keeping that momentum going with the marketing plan. So any kind of workflow assistance. Where do I find something? What's my next step? What's the status? All of those interactions. And because of the volume of work that Markie's now handling, we actually decided to expand the interface. And I like how you said, Jessie, based on like consumer interactions, right? We were inspired by all of the consumer interactions that we have today. And we've seen that it works really well to have Markie So Markie has an entire user interface now where it could be chats, notifications, recommendations, or Markie can simply be assisting you in context, to help you get to the right form or the right place. We know that many of our local partners who are using our systems aren't marketing or tech savvy. We always talk about how, they're in business because they're great at doing what they do best. They're in insurance because they're great at insurance. They're not necessarily great at marketing. So this level of automation really makes it easier for that local business owner to navigate this corporate solution that they've been given. And, you know, how do I get through this? Well, Markie can make that easier. So, you know, AI allows us to analyze massive amounts of data in real time, user and behavior preferences, and all of this information helps us create personalized and targeted recommendations that are going to better resonate. So in addition to some of those, Jessie, what are some of the other conversations you think maybe we could be automating?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that example too, depending on the marketing sophistication level and, you know, really
Mhm.
Markie's there for you. It's a great example of being able to meet your audience where they are and
Yes.
enable them to take that next step. So as we think about the use cases, so what's really driving the increase in adoption of conversation automation? So we have marketers, technology providers alike. We're all rethinking approaches to engagement and enablement in response to these heightened expectations for digital experiences and really the demands of a modernized workforce. ChatGPT is a really good example. If you don't help me find the information that I need in real time, I'm going to find a way to do it on my own, which is not
Yes.
always the best approach for a variety of reasons. So as we think about the different possibilities for leveraging conversation automation, so our goal is to really enhance a broad range of internal and external use cases. So whether these conversational interactions are buyer customer facing or even employee frontline marketer facing,
Mhm.
some of the use cases to consider. So using these conversations to fuel marketing program plays and automation rules. They're really like a master decision point in some ways as you think about the volley of that dialogue back and forth. So taking the output, the new signals captured in that conversation, and using that to inform decisioning really around that next best action. Should somebody go into this messaging stream? Should they receive this type of mailer with this specific creative? So using conversations to really, we talk about interconnection and the tactic mix or integrated marketing all the time. Those conversational interactions are really the glue that can stitch all of that together. There's also this idea of digital experience optimization. So that's been something that marketers have been striving for ever since digital became a thing, and that will never really go away. So if we think about the role of customer obsessed conversations, what does the customer need? Not what do I need as a business or how many click throughs am I trying to obtain? So the goal is to reduce friction for that customer audience while providing that contextual interaction with immediate value. And this really extends throughout the purchasing process into that post-sale experience. Another is using conversation automation to reactivate dormant demand. You referenced earlier the inactivity signal, and I love that as a signal. Signal is not always an action, it can be the lack of action that can be
Mhm.
sometimes an even stronger signal. So as we think about reactivation of dormant demand, seeing if a customer still got a pulse, using these conversations to learn more about those contacts that are in the database, capturing those new buyer and customer signals, those can be used to inform things like entry rules to a certain program play or treatment of that audience. And then we also have driving efficiency and scale in sales outreach. So letting that virtual assistant really serve as an extension of that lifecycle marketing team. So using a virtual assistant to help qualify demand, set appointments, maybe identify and connect buyer customer group members. We can enter opted-in contacts into relevant programs and set expectations for reconnecting later. So many different use cases can come into play when we start to leverage that virtual assistant. And really what that assistant is doing is helping both customer and marketer simultaneously as they both get to where they need to go. A really good use case too, customer onboarding and supporting customer
Mhm.
success at scale. So being there when your customers need you the most, helping them receive the information and even access that they might need to start using a solution that could be new to them, or what have you. So allowing that selling company to ensure that all systems are set up and ready to drive adoption and help that customer realize that value that they're seeking. And then finally, events. So events, whether virtual or in person, that's always a great example of, how can we up-level that experience at the same time that we're also guiding our audiences to where they need to go based on who they are and what they're looking to get out of that event. And as we think about, how that plays out inside of that event mix and even the marketing team as a whole, if we start to digitize that event support through conversation automation, we're also in a sense supplementing event staffing. So what would those human team members do to create
Right.
a memorable experience if only they had more time? So lots of possibilities there, but really it can be a bit of a carrot and stick situation. So expectations are high, right? Organizations that aren't meeting those buyer and customer expectations for relevant, contextual, and guided experiences are going to fall further behind and eventually lose out to organizations that can anticipate, meet, and exceed those customer expectations. So it's all about being able to really deliver on the promise of engaging and enabling self-service buyers and customers while reducing costs for the organization by automating those conversational interactions at scale.
Yeah. Oh, Jessie, that's such great insight. Thank you for sharing all of those use cases with us. And we've talked a little bit about generative AI because I feel like it layers into everything that we've spoken about so far. But I'd love to get into some of the details of that. So, Jessie, how are you seeing generative AI play out in marketing workflows?
That's a great question. Again, the promise becomes reality as we think about things like scalability. And some of the early use cases looking at the mass production of content assets, whether they're long form or short form, more compelling, I think, as we think personalization, contextualization, is the components or the modules of content that we need to assemble on the fly to
Yes.
deliver a relevant experience. So headlines, copy, creative images, call to action buttons, you name it, any of those content components that we need to create multiple variations of to fuel personalization are very much candidates for really getting started with generative AI. To get there, as we think about, how do I know what's right for my audience? I have my, maybe my marketing campaign or program brief, but I want to make sure that it's landing with that audience. So thinking back to the idea of signals and intent data, focusing in on things like fit, the current state, and interest signals of that audience to inform our planning, activation, and even adaptation of that content. So our goal is to allow marketer and machine to work together to really predict and deliver that most valuable personalized experience consistently across audiences and interaction types. So the goal, as possibilities are endless. Absolutely, it's a very exciting time. Strongly recommend, as you think going down this path, where in your organization can the introduction of generative AI drive the most efficiency, the most scale, and even more important though, the most improvement in those buyer customer interactions or those experiences. So how can we really use Gen AI to create differentiated experiences consistently for our audiences across that customer life cycle? things to focus on, or really what's underlying that promise. The ability to phase out some manual workflows and approval loops, for example, automating asset management and delivering content recommendations. Again, that could be to the customer: you've consumed this, you should read this next, or even to that local marketer: here's what we're seeing that works in in markets that are just like yours, or customers that look just like yours. So maybe you should consider doing X. So there's a lot of possibilities there. I think one that's really interesting as well is this idea of generative conversations. They're creating new content experiences. The ability to summarize data that you referenced earlier, that's a huge use case as we think here. Again, marketer or customer facing. If we think about this for the customer, say a business has a very long report, maybe it's a white paper or product spec sheets. Let's use generative AI to summarize the information that's going to matter the most to that audience, but not just deliver a summary. Let's engage in conversation. Is this the right information that you're looking for? What other supporting data points might you need? How can that system help you figure out what is my recommended action based on the insights that are being surfaced for me? So I think that's going to be another very interesting use case, in addition to, how will that play out for buyer customer audiences? We might have the ability to engage conversationally with that long form content asset rather than that, website greeter chatbot. They might be able to, point that audience to the right customer story and then handle any questions that come up after that audience has viewed that customer story or that content asset. So thinking about, improvements to workflow, being able to summarize long form content, absolutely, but there's also a real creative and innovative opportunity for marketers as they think about the content experience itself. So things like conversational content hubs, even voice first content consumption is not far behind what we're starting to see with a lot of the text-based conversations. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what marketers do with this technology as they get more and more comfortable and start to expand their early use cases.
Yes, yeah, we've been thinking a lot about how voice first might play into our ecosystem. It's a big question out there.
Absolutely. I may have a data point here for voice also. So thinking about planned investment in voice marketing, it's sometimes one of those things where we hear, oh, that's more a consumer thing. Business users, they're not gonna engage. That's simply not true. So same survey, our 2023 B2B marketing survey, found that 20% of B2B organizations plan to increase their investment in voice assistant marketing by 10% or more. So, a smaller kind of portion of that study data than the 61% of general CAS adoption that we see. However, I would say, 20% is not a low percentage as we think about what the future holds and this idea of that voice first interaction. Hands-free, I get the information that I need, and I can command that next action or receive it using natural language. So another area that's ripe for possibility and innovation in the future.
Yes, be interesting to see where that goes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Jessie, for practitioners on the webinar, where specifically do you think they should be using generative AI in their marketing workflows?
Yeah, great question. What can we do today? And really starting out with looking at your day-to-day activities. What are you doing on a daily basis and what is taking the most of your time? So is there a smarter way to, perform repetitive tasks that can help speed up the planning, production, and promotion of content? So, If we think from a planning perspective, how can generative AI help with ideation and even the precision of getting the content right? If we're not planning, if the strategy is a little bit off, it doesn't matter how much we can mass produce, it's still going to have that disconnect. So doing things like conducting research, developing even brief like inputs to share, recommending topics based on search trends or external market signals. What does the weather forecast tell us in terms of content that we should be ready to activate? We can also use generative AI to recommend whether we need to create new content or optimize existing content. From a production perspective, all about content generation, again, making those variations of images, headlines, calls to action at scale. And there's the question, as soon as I go down this path, am I going to be able to have any say in what my audiences see, right? So, if you're early into this, think about creating drafts for iteration and editing. So copy, imagery, audio, even video, and keep that human in the loop to review not just the content, but making sure that the right inputs and outputs are going into and coming out of that AI model. And then from a promotion perspective, so thinking about localizing language or imagery by audience and market, or even repackaging content into another format as we think about the interaction preferences of our buyers. Some personas, they're going to absolutely consume all of their information online. Others are waiting for that mailer because they need that physical thing to bookmark, to take notes on. So making sure that we can, from a promotion perspective, really meet all of those different audiences where they are based on their needs, and just as importantly, their interaction preferences.
Yes.
Oh, so I was going to ask as well, what are some of the more compelling use cases for generative AI that you're seeing? And curious also, thinking about the idea of keeping the human in the loop, to what extent are any of those use cases kicking out AI generated content to that buyer customer audience autonomously without human intervention?
Yeah, absolutely. And Jessie, you touched on some of them earlier when you were talking about generating content at scale, headlines, body copy, imagery, different tactics, sizes. So we're exploring generative AI to do all of those things. A few of the specifics that we've done so far is using generative AI in our predefined marketing templates. So if the brand has established that there's a guideline, something that they want their local affiliates to follow, imagine you're a local financial advisor and you have to write a blurb about yourself on a brochure. So we've infused generative AI in that customization workflow so that they can create that brand compliant text on the fly. And you also touched on this, Jessie, that when does a human need to be in the loop? Or there's often concerns about the quality of the content that's being generated. So to help put our corporate marketing teams at ease, we track every input and output. If a human periodically wants to QA those results, they can do that. And then from those results, we can also determine if we need to modify the prompting. So all of the prompts are set up with the corporate brand voice, all of the compliance rules. There might be things such as not being allowed to use certain terminology in the marketing or competitor names, or maybe a certain tone of voice is more appropriate for the audience. So with all of that preset in the prompting, it makes it so much easier for that local affiliate. And then it makes it so much easier for that corporate brand to trust what the generative AI is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All about
it. Yeah, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, where these, if you're a local business owner, you're not a prompt engineer. So we need to set up all of those prompts. That's really crucial as part of their experience with AI. And I liken it to OpenAI recently released custom instructions. That's the way I kind of think about this for the corporate brand voice. How would you like us to output to you?
Yes.
Put some guardrails around it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then thinking more about compliance, we look at a few different things. So for visual compliance in advertising, it's not only the brand guidelines. So it's not only things like, oh, is there proper space around the logo? Or did we use the right color specs? But it's also things like maybe in your industry, there are safety guidelines or discus guidelines if you're in the beverage alcohol industry. A great example that we had is we have a manufacturing client where if there's any humans in any imagery with equipment, they need to be wearing proper safety gear. You need to have your helmet on, you need to have a safety belt on. You're not allowed to stand in front of the equipment. And these are things that they literally have teams of compliance folks who review and monitor all of these things. So using the visual AI, we're able to prevent those things from going out. And the technology hasn't fully evolved in every single space. So somewhere where we definitely need a human in the loop would be like in the beverage alcohol industry, where we're generating imagery and you think about, alcohol being in a particular glass. So the AI doesn't necessarily know that beer needs to go in a beer stein and that champagne needs to go in a champagne flute, and it will sometimes mix those up. And I know there's the running joke about there how AI doesn't do hands very well. You'll end up with a hand with 6 fingers, and it just looks very odd. So we're not quite there yet in terms of visual processing. So in those cases, we're still using our design team to review final proofs. There's still that human in the loop because in addition to just the brand violation, there's also legal implications. So you would never want to publish an alcohol ad that's attractive to children, for example. You can't use things that are cartoony or appealing to a young audience. So for some of those, I do believe we'll get there, but we're not there quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And compliance is such a great example. I love the idea of using that image recognition to figure out, is it the right glass, or is anyone violating safety standards when it comes to that equipment? And then if you think about, how do we measure our success with AI? That's a great efficiency metric. So how many fewer human hours does it then take to go through that compliance process? And then also, as we think about, really the promise of AI from the get-go, and just, humans are prone to error, not that AI isn't, but thinking about things like data entry errors. So are we seeing an increased accuracy rate even from the compliance standpoint as we start to point our AI models at looking for these compliance issues? So I think that's another strong case there as well.
Yes, right. And then you can redeploy team members onto something more valuable because they're not doing some of those more mundane or rote tasks.
Yep, exactly.
There's one more thing I'd like to share in terms of generative AI. So we have enabled local partners to do a variety of marketing activities so they can generate their own marketing content. So maybe they need help writing a social media post, a podcast script, a response to a customer review. Again, the generative services all consider the brand's voice, style, compliance rules. And the other thing I'll touch on is it's really important to use a partner where you're sure that your proprietary data isn't making its way into the hands of a large language model. That's been one of our biggest concerns expressed by our clients. And so if you use a trusted solution where you know that it's not, then you can rest assured.
Yep, that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Not just
so.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, all of this conversation is flowing lovely into our final topic of personalization and contextualization, which I know, try to say that 3 times fast, right? So Jessie, tell me how Forrester is looking at this.
Yes, all roads point to contextualization. So
Mhm.
if, if we think back to the expectations of our audiences and even that of the workforce that we're navigating now, we're finding new ways to leverage AI, intent signals, and automation to better understand and engage and enable our buyers across different interactions through a more personalized and connected buying experience. So I think one challenge with personalization specifically is many organizations don't have an agreed upon definition of personalization. So if you think about introducing AI into that mix, we're essentially trying to scale something that is a bit nebulous, and maybe not everybody is thinking about that in the same way. So what we recommend is standardizing around your definition of personalization, and then figuring out from there what role does technology play. So Forrester defines personalization as an experience that uses customer data and understanding to frame, guide, extend, and enhance interactions based on that person's history, preferences, context, and intent. So from there, if we think about, what is personalization, it's not a tactic in and of itself. It's really anchored to that experience. So we're looking at not only the selection of delivery mechanisms and say the sequencing of assets, but also the tone, the style, the pacing, and the visual elements that will combine with audience signals to create that experience on the fly. We could even introduce external or third-party signals. Again, what's going on in the weather? How does that change
Mhm.
what one of our, say, local dealers or local shops might want to put up in their windows or message out to their customers in that market? So the goal of personalization is to really get content activation right. We have a bit of this continuum from personalization to contextualization, and then we have customization in the middle. So customization, we're creating net new content to support unique experiences for specific audiences or use cases. This could be target industries, named accounts, or even buying groups that are aligned to those accounts. So the creation of that custom content is another area where AI and even natural language generation are playing a role in that tactic mix through creation of dialogue, again, those narrative summaries and short form content that's really optimized for the individual. Contextual interactions are going to combine the elements of that personalized experience and that customized content to really sense and respond to buyer needs in real time and provide a highly relevant and continuously optimized experience by being able to adapt and orchestrate tactics based on new signals or insights that we gain with each of those interactions. So really the optimized experience isn't just personal anymore, it's contextual. We need to understand the needs and interaction intention of our audiences in real time to help orchestrate a hyper-relevant and self-optimizing tactic experience that really enables these complex buyer and customer journeys based on the signals that we're able to detect. Personalization technology capabilities and AI are really enabling marketers to transform these experiences with accuracy, precision, scale, and I would say even empathy as we start to really
Mhm.
understand the customer and how even these external market level signals are going to impact that customer. So we're going to see in the near future, if not, maybe by the end of this webinar broadcast, personalization is going to become a key use case for generative AI in marketing. It'll help us, finally create thousands of variations of text or image or even voice content components to support the dynamic assembly of personalized tactics as we get ever closer to that segment of one. What are some of the more effective approaches to personalization at the local level that you're seeing?
Yeah. When I was looking at these topics and I was thinking about it, it drew me back to when BrandMuscle was first founded. Our CEO used to always tell the story about, you want to see a red convertible in an automotive ad in California in the summer, but you want to see a four-wheel drive SUV in Milwaukee in the winter. That was the original concept for us of personalization and localization, was like, at least make it locally relevant. So now it's all about using generative AI to do all of those things automatically. In the age of tech, in the age of brand, it was about enabling the local partner to choose those variables, manually as they were customizing their ad. But I love now that we're doing this at scale, using our first party data, using third party data. Jessie, you brought up weather signals, and that's been one of our key use cases, is that if you're running an in-flight media campaign and there's a weather event in your local area, we can now swap out the creative to be locally relevant with that personalized message that will be more likely to reach the consumer. So, be prepared for the upcoming storm. Do you have all the equipment you need? Batteries, chainsaws, etc. Or if there's an ice storm coming in, do you have the right auto insurance for today's icy roads, and swap out the creative for a message that's more locally relevant. Or if you're a bar or restaurant and suddenly it's going to be beautiful and everyone's excited to get out on the patio, maybe you'd want to swap out the creative for something that talks about, join us on the patio, join us outside, like, oh, how exciting. That's much more relevant for the customer. And then machine learning recommendations have also been a big part of personalization for local affiliates. So it could be in recommending a strategic marketing package for them based on their demographic factors, their fund balance, their history or local campaign performance. How have they done in the past? So we look at all of those factors to be able to provide that personalized recommendations. It might even be as simple as like driving local partners through a survey to figure out their proper tactic mix. We've done things like that as well. So all very interesting.
Yeah, those are great examples. I'd rather be sitting on that patio in the nice weather than making sure that I have enough shovels to get through the blizzard, but all very relevant, and talk about being able to provide actionable messaging out into that market when it's going to matter most.
Exactly. Well, I can't believe it, Jessie, but we are running very close on time. So I'm going to kick us over to our Q&A to see if there's a few questions that we might answer before we close things out. Let's see. All right, here's one. How do you implement AI marketing tools? I'll take a first stab at this one, Jessie, and then maybe you can jump in. I think it's really important to start small and then focus on what kind of benefit you're trying to get from the AI and automation. And you might even do that by running a pilot group or running a test, soliciting feedback from the people that are using the AI tools. In the channel marketing world, it might be if you have a dealer council or a small group that you typically go to, involve them in the feedback. And get to know how they're feeling about the tools. And then the other thing that I would say that is really critical is training, because training is crucial to success. When you've got those non-savvy tech folks who are hesitant about AI, you've got to make sure that they understand why they're doing and what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely. And the role that they play in the success of that implementation. Absolutely. And what I would add, to that, certainly starting out with that use case, for example, how will personalization be used to deliver relevance and value? From there, thinking about that pilot, using inputs from the program plan to align our content, our data, our decisioning, and even the delivery mechanisms in the mix around audience needs and preferences. And then identifying, are there any friction points for those buyers and customers that we can point that AI at to remove some of that friction by providing more relevant content throughout each step of the journey. So how do we know what's relevant? Again, thinking about those signals and sensors. How can we leverage our signals to really target, tailor, and even trigger some of that key messaging? And then as we think about the pilot itself, starting small, something that we can control, something that we can baseline and measure success along each step of that journey, just to not only drive that proof of concept, but to socialize and share internally how we're using AI, how the success that we're finding, how that's helping our customer experience. And oh, by the way, here's what we plan to do next, now that we really understand the art of the possible as we start to infuse AI into those interactions.
Yes, for sure. All right, let's go to our next question. What role does intent data play in all of this, and where do those signals come from?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that one. For me, intent is critical. Even in the basic rules-based approach to personalization, if this, then that, we need to understand what's the fit, current state, and interest of that buyer. Are they in market right now? So we need that level of intent to really know our customers and anticipate their needs. So with that, we can help empower them at each step in that journey, or we're going to lose out, to a provider that can. So really, it's these signals that are informing marketer and machine who to engage with what content, and when, and then what is that next best action after that in the moment engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a final question is, this person says they're in a corporate marketing role. How would Markie interact with audiences on my behalf? So this goes back to, that something interesting that we've heard from customers recently is that, Markie actually reduces the strain on their corporate marketing team, because Markie is answering a lot of the questions that local partners would have. Or Jessie, you talked about friction points, right? So, is there a struggle in understanding what local marketing is best? Is there a struggle in getting partners to execute, to spend all of their funds? Wherever those main friction points are, deploy Markie there, to provide recommendations, to give gentle nudges, to answer questions, to provide marketing recommendations. All of those things come together, to really improve the partner experience.
And by doing so, improving the customer experience.
Yes.
I think that's another kind of theme that we're surfacing here. It's not just enabling those marketers and those partners. If we're able to do so and do it well, it's really our buyers and customers at the end of the day that are going to benefit from that enablement.
Yes, 100%. So, all right. Well, we've really great questions today. If we didn't get to your question, please reach out to us. Let us know how we can help you on this journey of AI discovery. So thank you everyone for joining. And a reminder that this webinar will be recorded and shared. So please don't hesitate to contact us if you're interested in learning more. And thanks so much for your time, Jessie. Loved having you today.
Thank you, Sarah. It was a great chat as usual.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.